Welcome to What's a Beautiful Life Anyway? I'm your host, Jill Bennett. This is the channel that shares ideas to help you live your best life, because life can be beautiful if you live consciously. Welcome to this episode of What's a Beautiful Life Anyway. My guest today is Fiona Challis. Fiona is an award-winning motivational speaker, a licensed rapid transformational therapy therapist, a positive psychology coach, a trauma-informed and somatic healing coach. Hi, Fiona.
Hi, Jill. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so lovely to have you here. Had a lovely lunch with Fiona just a few weeks ago.
Oh, it was so much fun.
I think it was a good job the restaurant was quiet, because there was an awful lot of loud laughter.
Well, that will be Amina.
That would be Amina. Yes, certainly will be Amina. Fiona, to live our best and most beautiful life, we need to make sure that any relationships we have are supportive and loving ones. And I know that you help people to break free from destructive relationship patterns that are keeping them stuck. What drives you, Fiona?
Oh gosh, how long have you got, Jill? So I am one of those women who unfortunately had the knack of picking all of the wrong guys. So I was married for, 10 years, divorced in, let me see, when did I divorce now? 2007, seems like a long time ago now. And just since after that, Jill, I just had one disastrous relationship after the next. It just seemed like if they were emotionally unavailable, if they wouldn't commit, if they were toxic, it was almost like I had it tattooed on my head, use and abuse. And I can laugh at it now that I look back at it, but at the time, it was a really, really hard time for me. And 3 years ago, I had a really horrible relationship, a really, really bad breakup. And I just thought, I have to find out why this keeps happening, because there's only one thing that's a commonality in all of those disastrous relationships. And unfortunately, it's me. And it was really hard. It was a really hard moment to say, actually, Fee, I think you need to do a little bit of inner work and see what's going on and see why this keeps happening to you. And that's what really got me into doing my own healing work and put me on this journey that I'm on today to help other women, because I realized that actually it's not just me that this happens to. At the time, you think it is, but I realized it's not.
And what an amazing...
It's just like me that this keeps happening to.
Yeah. What an amazing thing, though, that you discovered that and admitted it, because you see so many people, don't you, who attract the wrong person all the time, and you sort of think to yourself, and you often you can't say it to them, but you think to yourself, hang on a minute, there's been 10 of these relationships and the one commonality is you. You need to work on yourself. And it's not just in relationships, is it? It's you get people who are in and out of jobs and none of the jobs work out because the boss is bad, or they're always broke, and when they get some money they lose it or they waste it. And it is that common thread, and people should realize they really need to work on themselves. Fiona, it's true, isn't it? You had a very successful career with a huge multinational software company that we won't mention the name. Tell us a bit about that and what made you write the book.
So I mean, years ago, I spent most of my time actually in the corporate world, as you say, working for a big IT company. And that's how I know our mutual friend, Amina, because we both worked together then. And actually, we worked together in Yellow Pages all those years ago when we had Yellow Pages. And then when did I start the business? It was also 2007. I started up my own IT sales training company because my son Jamie was starting to go to school. And I was a single parent then because I just got divorced. And I thought, I just can't do corporate hours. I just cannot do corporate hours. I won't be able to pick them up from school. I won't be at football matches or school plays. So I thought, no, I need flexibility. And that's why I set up my own sales training company, which I've had for over 15 years now. And it's been really successful. But when I started to do all of this inner work, I've always been like you, Jill. I've always been mad into personal development. I've always really wanted to, just learn more about myself. I just fell in love with this work when I seen what a change it was making in my own life and how it could help other women. So I'm doing this more now from a passion perspective rather than profit, because I just felt called after I'd done the healing work. I just felt called to retrain and change it. And my son's at university now. He doesn't need me as much. So I thought, you know what? I'm doing it for me now, and I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm doing it because I love it.
That's so good, isn't it? It's when you suddenly get a bit more time for you and a bit more time to do what you want to do in life, it's wonderful. We should say, we haven't actually said what the title of your book is yet, but it's Eat, Pray, Self-Love. And I'm just going to remove my notes to make sure I have put it in front of the camera. Yeah. It's a lovely book. It's a lovely book to read. It's beautifully written. It's full of some lovely stories, and it's full of lots and lots of great exercises for people to work through. And it is all about relationships. The relationship we have with ourselves is so important, isn't it? But so many women and a few men always put others first before thinking about the relationship they have with themselves. Why is that?
Well, I mean, it's so common, Jill, and it's because, most of us get a sense of validation from other people. So, even when we were growing up as kids, you got a sense of that validation from your parents. You learned how to get love and connection by doing what your parents wanted to do. And for some of us, that meant people pleasing. For some of us, that meant being the overachieving kid, the good girl, the fixer, the problem solver. And we learn that's how we get love and connection. And then what happens is when you go into your older life, to yourself today, and in relationships, you carry the same patterns. So if you were people pleasing when you were younger, if you were the overachiever, you were the fixer when you were younger, you do the same in relationships today. And then that sense of validation comes from what other people give to you. You very rarely actually sit down and go, well, what do I like about myself? I mean, who sat us down as a young kid and went, this is why it's so important to love yourself first. This is how you give yourself praise. None of us really, especially our generation, Jill, we were never sat down and told that, were we? It's only when you go through pain in life that unfortunately you do sit back and go, well, actually, what about me?
Yeah, in fact, I think we had the opposite. If ever, now I always try and say to my children, who are young adults, it's amazing, look at what you've done. I'm so proud. But in our days, if you were to say something about something you'd achieved, you'd have been a cocky kid, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Whereas now, we as parents, we are the opposite. But as children, when we were growing up, it was the opposite for us.
Yeah, complete opposite. So it's so important that people remember that and make sure their children know how much they're loved and how proud you are of them. And then hopefully there'll be less people getting to our age and finding that they're still, I mean, I'm a bit of a people pleaser and can never say no to anything.
Yeah.
You need to have that balance in life, really.
You do. And the other thing I just said, Jill, and again, we're not taught this at schools, which is why I'm so passionate about bringing this into schools now. We're not taught from a very young age that actually the relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship of all, because that relationship you have with yourself is going to form every other relationship in your life, your romantic relationships, your work relationships, your friendships. If you're happy, confident, and secure in yourself, so will your relationships be. But if you're insecure, if you're always clinging on, if you're people pleasing, if you're scared of people is going to leave you all the time, that's going to transpire into your relationships as well.
Yeah. Do you know, I must be, well, I know I'm quite intuitive, but I remember going on a girls' holiday when I was about 22. And, we were having a great time. We were in one of the Greek islands.
That's right, I went on my first holiday.
Was it? And the girl I was with and I was sharing a room with just didn't have confidence. And for some reason, I think mine was probably linked to having the amount of cocktails I had, but I was more confident than her. And I can remember one morning that us getting up, she said to me, God, it's all right for you. I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, everybody loves you. And look, you were the life and soul again last night, and everybody radiates around you. And I just looked at her and I said, do you know, you have to love yourself before you can expect other people to love you. And I was 22. And I, to this day, don't know where that came from.
But
I mean,
so true.
but it's so true. You've got
Yeah.
to love yourself. And I say to ladies that I coach through the 30 days program, look in the mirror and find something about yourself you love. There must be something. You've got beautiful eyes, you've got beautiful hair. You know, high five yourself in the mirror, as Mel Robbins would say.
Yeah.
Because you high five other people, but you never congratulate yourself for
Yourself.
the things that you do. So, I mean, and this is all about self-love. So, you know, what is true self-love, Fiona?
Well, I mean, for me, self-love is not abandoning yourself, because what you've just described there is self-abandonment. And most of the time, actually, we don't even realize that we're doing it. And self-love, the term self-love, most people think it's just like nice bubble baths or treat yourself to a nice lunch with friends, get your hair done, whatever. But actually, true self-love compromises of so much more. And again, I had to learn this on my own healing journey, because I got my validation and love from other people. I didn't get it from myself. In fact, if I'm really honest, Jill, I was very confident on the outside. And again, this happens a lot with us women. On the outside, it looks like everything's fine and you're really happy and confident and you have loads of self-love. But actually, inside, you're feeling like, I just don't feel like I'm enough. I don't feel like I'm the same as anybody else. I feel different, you know, and you do feel all of that. So for me, real self-love is, first of all, becoming aware of that, having that moment of self-awareness and actually a little bit of compassion for yourself. You know, saying to yourself, do you know what, Faye? Actually, that was shit what you went through. Sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Okay.
Well, you know, it is. It's having, first of all, the self-awareness, then having a little bit of self-compassion for yourself and saying, actually, that was pretty bad, you know, what you went through. And then I feel when you start to recognize that, then your sense of self-worth starts to come back, you know, and it starts to build up, then your self-esteem comes back with it. And it's only when you've got that self-worth and self-esteem back, Jill, that as women, we're then able to start putting ourselves first. So we set boundaries. We know what we will accept and what we won't accept. We know what feels good for us, what doesn't feel good for us. And you prioritize yourself first. For me, I was a yes person like you. I would have always said, yeah, of course, no problem, because I hated saying no to people. But from now, what I do now, Jill, as I say, saying no to other people is saying yes to me.
Yeah.
And that's self-love. And sometimes I do need to have the self-love. You know, I'm not working 16, 18-hour days anymore. I actually look after myself now.
Yeah.
Whereas beforehand, I just didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so easy, isn't it? To, you know, I got up this morning and thought, right, I'm going to go out for a walk for an hour. And then I thought, oh no, Jill, you've got so much to do. And then I thought, no, I'm going.
No, prioritize it.
And it's, yeah, it's so easy not to do it, but it's also easy to do it. And that's what we have to remember, just do it. And the more we look after ourselves, the more energy and the more we're actually going to achieve in life.
Yeah, I mean, even as a parent, to be honest, Jill, when I look back, I wish now when I was bringing my son up, I really wish I had put myself first, because I actually think I would have had a lot more energy with him if I hadn't have just done everything for him, everything for the business, everything for work, everything for everybody else, and leave me to last. But it's like hindsight, you know, you learn as you grow older.
Yeah, we all make these mistakes, don't we? And oh, Fiona, your lovely book and the program that you run, who would they help?
Well, it's mainly all for women to start with, but I keep getting messages now from men saying, why can't you help men? It's completely relevant to them as well. So I think we have another book coming. But we're starting with women first. So it's either women who are single, and some of them, to be honest, are actually avoiding relationships because they feel, actually, I'm safer being by myself, because if I'm by myself, I can't get hurt. And there's a lot of, especially high achieving women that I work with, who feel it's easier to stay single. and they can be in control of their career, they can be in control of money and everything else, but when it comes to relationships, it feels uncomfortable for them. So I have a lot of single, high professional ladies who are like that. Then I have a lot of people in relationships. So either women who are in relationships and maybe concerned that there's a couple of things wrong in it, some of them on the verge of ending, and others, they just want to make sure actually they have a healthy and happy relationship and they want to keep it that way. Yeah. So you've kind of got a mix. You have a mix of single women, women in relationships, and then you've got women who just keep seeing the same destructive patterns, which was like me.
Yeah.
You know, and that was 100% me. My relationships would always go great for probably the first 6 months, and then things would start to go wrong. So it's women like me as well.
And do you think some of that is self-sabotage? Because we all know that if everything starts running along beautifully in your life, we will quite often self-sabotage because of that lack of worthiness, that feeling inside that we don't really deserve it. And we could never put it into words like that, could we? But subconsciously you sabotage whatever success or the relationship, the nice relationship you're having.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, Jill, that all comes down to your attachment style. So, you know, if you have an anxious attachment style, what you'll end up doing is kind of 6 months in, you'll start to be thinking, it's going too good. They're going to leave me, aren't they? And then that fear of abandonment starts to kick in. So you start to sabotage it. Or if you have an avoidant attachment style, as soon as you find things starting to get really close, the closeness and the intimacy of it actually starts to scare you, and you end up pulling back. And then you end up saying to yourself, well, this is going to go wrong anyway, so I'll dump them before they dump me. And that's how the sabotaging part seems to come in. So it's very, how you behave and how you sabotage is very much based on whether you're an anxious attachment style or avoidant attachment style. I was anxious, but then you have a lot of women who are avoidant, where they're actually really happy being by themselves. They want a relationship, but when they get into a relationship, they kind of lose themselves. And then the sabotage kicks in.
Yeah.
And we all do it.
There is a chapter on attachment styles, isn't there?
The second one is attachment style, yeah.
And you had read it, yeah. Yeah. What did I think I was? I can't remember what I thought I was when I was reading that.
I mean, you're one of four. You're either securely attached, and you're probably securely attached now, Jill. You're either anxiously attached, avoidant attached, or fearful, which is a little bit of a mix between anxious and avoidant. Yeah. You can have a little bit of each one of them, to be honest with you, in certain situations, but in relationships, you'll have one primary one.
And yeah, I've been married for 28 years. So.
Yeah, you're definitely secure, Jill.
Yeah. Okay, so why is it that so many of us try so many different things to sort ourselves out or get unstuck, but we still feel stuck? What is it that's causing that, Fiona?
Well, I mean, for me, it's always searching for answers. So, you know, when there's a little part in you that keeps doing all of these things, and maybe tried talk therapy, you've tried counseling, you've tried coaching, you've tried all these wonderful things, you've read every book, you've listened to podcasts, you've done everything, and you still feel stuck. That's your body telling you there's something we haven't quite dealt with here. And it's that kind of inner sign that's saying, I think there's something we haven't yet tried. So for me, when you feel stuck, it's your body's way of saying there's something else we need to do. And the part that I found, certainly in my own healing journey, Jill, the part that really got me from feeling really stuck to getting unstuck is when I started to do the nervous system regulation. Because I'd worked on the mind, I'd worked on my heart, I'd worked on my emotions, I'd done talk therapy, I'd done absolutely everything. I still felt stuck. And I'm like, how can I be stuck after 3 years? But your body keeps the score. Your body holds on to stuff, and very often we forget that actually you have to learn how to regulate your body. You need to learn how to navigate your nervous system and take more of an embodied approach to healing, so that you're healing all of you, not just part of you. And for me, when you're feeling stuck like that and you've done loads already, it's because we haven't done that last part. And for me, that was the missing piece of the puzzle.
And I think it's probably a good time now to mention the RTT, because it's an incredible therapy, isn't it? Where you get into your unconscious mind using a form of hypnosis. And, you know, having had RTT, I think the way they take you into hypnosis is very, very clever as well. But tell us a little bit more for those listening who don't know what RTT is. Tell us a bit more about what that is.
Yeah, lovely. So RTT is a therapy that was founded by a lovely lady called Marissa Peer. You can YouTube her. She's got loads of great videos up there. But Marissa created the therapy really to help women get to the root cause. So the real root cause of what people's issues were. And the way it works is it's hypnosis. So we use hypnosis so that we can actually tap into the subconscious mind, because that's where everything is stored. So every thought, pattern, belief, everything that's happened to you in your life, even if you can't consciously remember it, it is stored in your subconscious mind. So using a lovely method of hypnosis, we start to get into the subconscious mind, and then we go in and find out what the real root cause of women's issues are. And it could be their parents left them when they were young. Their parents got divorced when they were younger. And they hold on to those beliefs, and those beliefs then act out in their entire life, their entire adult life. So sometimes what we have to do with hypnosis is, when we're in that subconscious mind, is we help you to unlearn and we help you to relearn. So we're almost taking out the bad stuff and putting in more of the good stuff, and saying, actually, as a child, that probably really helped you, but as an adult today, it's actually hindering you. So let's change it. Let's put more of an empowering belief in there. Let's reprogram it so that it serves you better today. And when you're in the subconscious mind, it happens a lot faster, which is why RTT is such a fantastic therapy.
No, it is good. And I know when I've had it, it's uncovered things that, you know, you don't realize.
You don't even remember them.
No, that's right. And I think that's what's so amazing about it, because there'll be lots of people listening who possibly think, oh, I've got nothing, you know, but you really don't know what you don't know.
And I mean, it could be it might even be something not even to do with relationships. It might just be something in your life. All of a sudden you start to feel anxious around certain situations and you can't work out why. When you do RTT, it gets to the root of what that is.
No, it's a very clever. Anyone listening who feels they're stuck in some way, honestly, contact Fiona, because it is an incredible therapy to try.
It only takes one session. I mean, that's why I actually loved it, because, you know, I had done talk therapy when I was going through this. So before I did RTT, I did talk therapy for a year. And literally, like, every Friday afternoon for an hour, I had a session every single time on a Friday. My weekends would be ruined because I'd be still upset by what I found out in the talk therapy session. But it was just talking about the same thing over and over again every week. And I was just getting nowhere fast. And it was only when I did the RTT session with Marissa that actually I got to the real root cause of why it was happening. And then I was able to change it and kind of get back in the driver's seat. And that's the key thing, is just getting back in the driver's seat and back in control.
No, it is amazing. Some women, they seem to keep attracting emotionally unavailable men, don't they? Men who won't commit. One after another, toxic relationships. And I guess the obvious question to ask is why. But my question is, why are so many men unable to commit or hold on to a loving relationship?
Good question. And I like the way you switched it around, Jill. But, you know, honestly, whether it's the man that's emotionally unavailable or whether it's the woman, it actually all stems back to your childhood. So when we're brought onto this planet, you know, we are wired for love and connection. You know, we're relationship beings. We need other people to survive, especially when you're a dependent little baby coming into this world. And you form a relationship with, obviously, your caregivers, for most, the mom and dad, or just caregivers. And that relationship you form then impacts every other relationship you have throughout the rest of your life. So if you had a man who had an emotionally unavailable woman as a mother, if you had a man where the mother was erratic, so sometimes it was safe to be with her, sometimes it wasn't, that then affects his relationship when he grows older with other women. So he ends up becoming emotionally unavailable himself.
Gosh.
Does that make sense? So they
That
kind
does make
of
sense.
do what was done to them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's what happens.
Yeah. And you often hear, don't you, that men who witness their mother being abused can become abusers themselves.
Very common, unfortunately, very common. And the same, you know, for any people who have been abused, unfortunately, the trauma sticks.
Yeah.
You know, until you get professional help with that, which is what most people should now do.
Yeah, they should.
But back then, it wasn't readily available, Jill. I mean, even trauma work today is so readily available. There's even so much free trauma work available to people today. Whereas, look back even 10 years ago, it wasn't even a word that was openly discussed. You know, trauma was a shame.
Yeah.
Whereas now, it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There were so many things that weren't talked about and weren't dealt with in the right way, weren't there? And it's shocking to think of it now. Thank goodness we've moved on. We've got.
I know, but thank God all good people like Gabor Mate, and have you read his book, Gabor Mate, The Body Keeps the Score?
No, I don't think I have actually.
He's The Body Says No, actually, and there's another guy that says The Body Keeps the Score. But Gabor Mate is very much trauma informed, so he looks at how trauma impacts children growing up, but obviously adults of today as well, and how that forms in adult relationships. He's a oh my God, he's a real guru on it. He's really good. Gabor Mate, he's called.
Gabor,
Gabor, and then Mate, Mate.
M-A-T-E. Okay, I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well, so that
yeah, his is The Body Says No, and there's another book called The Body Says. One is The Body Calls No, and the other one is The Body Keeps the Score.
Okay, brilliant. I've just made a note of that
because they show you just how trauma stays in your body.
Yeah.
And when you learn how to release that, then that's where you really get unstuck.
Yeah, because it can impact your health so much, can't
Yeah.
it? The stuck energy in the body, and I've read so much about it, can cause, I mean, just a point in my family, my parents divorced, and after a big custody battle, me and my two sisters were with my mum, and my brother went to my dad. And unbeknown to us, and I can say this now because neither my dad or my brother are with us any longer, my dad put my brother in a boarding school in the UK and went to live abroad with his new, the woman he'd been having an affair with. And at sort of weekends out of boarding school and that, my brother used to go to an aunt's. My dad didn't even tell us because my mum would have, brother there. And my brother died of lung cancer. And it's that whole thing of a lack of love that, all affecting the chest. And it's just, it's just so sad to think of a child growing up from such a young age without having a mother's love. It's
so hard. That must have been really, really hard for him, actually.
Yeah.
And for you guys as well, obviously learning that when you grow up as well, learning that is hard.
Yeah.
And I think as women in particular, Jill, what I see a lot, and honestly, it's no exaggeration to say that nearly every woman that comes to me, they all have gut issues. So either they've IBS, they have I had an inflammatory bowel disease that developed when I was breaking up with the guy that was a narcissist. I'd never had it before, and all of a sudden it just developed, and I had a huge flare up and ended up in hospital with it because your body literally just reacts. And there is so much evidence now with gut and brain health that 80% of what we're going through actually comes from our gut, not our brain.
Yes.
So if 80% is body to brain, not brain to body, which is what we always thought before.
Yeah.
And that's why the body and all of these issues, they keep coming up when it's stored trauma.
Yeah, it's one of the things I help people with, actually, is the whole, because I've had that same issue with gut health and IBS.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. The gut-brain axis now, there's so much research that proves look after your gut and you'll help your brain and your mind and your thoughts and everything else. So yeah, really interesting.
I think it's listening to it as well, isn't it, though? Because I just put it down to, I must have been under a lot of stress and everything else. But actually, when you really listen into it and you start to heal it that way, then that's when you're able to resolve it and put it back into remission. But it's learning to listen to it in the first place. We don't very often listen to our body. We just keep going.
Yeah. And we don't sort of research it, do we? We just
No.
accept. Especially, I remember going to privately to a gastroenterologist, I think he was, at Parkside Hospital in Wimbledon, and him doing various tests and then saying, "Oh, it's just IBS."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because our medical doctors, however brilliant they are, they don't get the right training. There was a lovely quote, I'll see if I can find it before we finish, by Thomas Edison. And it's something about in the future, we want doctors who help you to do the right thing rather than just give you medicine. Because
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
we don't
But you
need.
know, none of them do it. Like even when I went through all of that, none of them ever said, "Is there anything going on in your life that's stressful? How are you feeling in your mental health? How are you feeling emotionally?" They were just saying, "No, okay, it's colitis you've got. Here you go, take these steroids, take this," and they just treat it. They don't actually treat what's causing it in the
That's
first place.
right. That's right. They treat the symptoms rather than
Not
looking
the
for the
cause.
underlying cause. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And there are
yeah.
more and more doctors becoming enlightened now. I know Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, he's
Oh,
written
I
several
love his
fantastic
podcast.
books.
He's so good.
Yeah, he's really good. And the doctor I was chatting to yesterday, who is on another edition of the podcast, she actually retired. She was a chiropractor, but she'd had that medical training, and she'd retired, moved to Boston, and she said she kept seeing all these people in the financial district who just looked ill.
Yeah.
She'd started chatting to them and trying to find out things, and she realized that none of them took care of themselves or understood why they were so
Mm.
pasty and headachy and everything else. So, anyway, we've gone off track a little bit.
I know we could talk about this for hours though.
We could. It's so fascinating. We've sort of looked at this a little bit, but is it possible, Fiona, to change so that you can have a healthy and happy relationship where you're seen, heard, valued, and
Mm.
loved? Because it just seems impossible to find, doesn't it, sometimes?
It does, honestly. And actually, even just before this, I was just writing some copy for a masterclass because actually there are so women who just feel like this is never going to change. You know, it's not possible for me. It's possible for everybody else. It's not possible for me. And there's just so many women, Jill, who feel so alone in this. They think that they are the only person that this is happening to. And
Yeah,
honestly, they're not. There are so many of us that go through it. But you do get that feeling sometimes like it's just never going to change. So I might as well put up with it. But it is possible to change. I mean, I'm living proof of it.
yeah, yeah,
But for it to change, you have to change the relationship you have with yourself. And
yeah,
you have to start with you first because happiness starts with you. Healing starts with you. Nobody else, not even me. I can't heal you. You know, I can guide you, but you still have to do that inner work. And happiness and healing comes from within. You just need a guide that's going to guide you through the right steps to say, okay, let's do this small step first, achieve that, and then move on to the next step. Otherwise, you just overwhelm your whole system with it. But I would say definitely, definitely, definitely it's possible. Not just in romantic relationships, Jill, but like even when I did my own healing work, even my relationship with my son changed. You
yeah.
know, I had no idea. Like I was fixing everything for him. I was one of those moms where if he came to me with a problem, I wouldn't even let him finish what he was saying. I'd already be fixing it. And you don't even realize you're doing it.
No, no, and it's not empowering for them, is it really?
No,
You know,
no.
we need
Whereas now he does everything himself, and I say, "Do you want mommy to listen or do you want mommy to help? Which one?" But it took me 3 years to get to that point, and it's only really now in my life today that I'm actually starting to really live this way every day, every minute.
yeah.
But you need to work on yourself first, and that's the hard part.
Yeah, that's the hard part. And I love you saying happiness comes from within. There's
Yeah.
another quote that I really like, and it's from Abraham Lincoln, and he says that people are about as happy as they make up their minds to be.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
We can live in misery, or we can say, right, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to change. I'm going to do the work to change, because the
Yeah.
happier you are and the more grateful you are for your life, the more happiness you're going to attract.
Oh, absolutely. And to be honest, that's actually why I ended up retraining as well in the positive psychology coaching, because The RTT part's fantastic because it helps you to find out what kind of happened in the past that's influencing your life today. But there's so many therapies out there, Jill, that always focus on what's wrong with you. Whereas positive psychology, which is why I love it, positive psychology actually helps you to focus on what's right with you. Yeah. So when you put the two together, they make a perfect combination, because we get to the root cause, and then we use positive psychology and say, well, let's look at everything that's good in your life. And that's where the gratitude comes in. Looking at your positive emotions every day and becoming more aware, you know, how often are you positive versus how often are you being negative every day?
Yeah.
And actually getting to know yourself, you know, understanding what's your values. What do you actually like? What do you want in your life?
Yeah, it's so important. There's another great book. Yeah, there's another great book by Shawn Achor called The Happiness Advantage.
Oh, I haven't read that one.
Oh, that's really good. And again, it's sort of aimed at workplaces, but it's so appropriate for individuals as well. And he's got a brilliant TED talk that's so funny. And he was at Harvard as a professor of psychology, and he realized that everybody looked at what's wrong with people. And he changed that, and he wanted to look at what was right. If this person is really well balanced and happy, what is it they're doing that we can encourage others to do? It's brilliant. His wife, she's another positive psychologist, and she, I can't remember her first name, but she was a news anchor. And she kept saying, can't we put more good news on? Why do we focus on the bad news? And they were like, oh, bad news doesn't sell, you know, can't put bad news on. And she ended up managing to work with a television station that only published good news.
Good news. Oh, wow. I must look that one up. Is it still going today?
I don't know, but I'll find the name of her book, because she's written a great book as well. And I'll let you have those. But I think this is probably the ideal time to break for the end of part 1.
Yeah.
We're going to come back in a week's time, and we're going to talk about your program, the Happiness
Code.
Happiness Code. I'm going to put it, the Happiness Code, and we're going to go into each element of that so people have an idea of what it is and what it involves. But if people can't wait for that, Fiona, where can they get hold of your book?
So easiest thing to do is go to Amazon. You can buy a copy on Amazon. Just go Eat, Pray, Self-Love, Fiona Challis, and it'll come up. Or you can go to my website, rapidrelationshiptherapy.com, or just connect with me on Instagram or Facebook. We'll put the QR code or something in the notes.
We will.
Just connect with me that day. But it's on Amazon to buy, so I hope you enjoy it.
Brilliant. Well, we'll put all that up, and we'll be back again next week to talk about the Happiness Code. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Jill. Really, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to this week's show. Check out all the links to the resources mentioned in today's episode and all my freebies in the show notes. See you next time.